We start our story today with a player bridging across an expansive lava lake. All of a sudden, a ghast shoots a fireball at him and knocks him off into the air. This is what we're gonna call an uh-oh scenario. As a speedrunner with years of experience playing this game, scenarios like this one happen far too often. Luckily, this player watched this video, where I go over the 3 main principles of survival, break down how to survive the most common uh-oh scenarios, and in detail explain how to get out of many bad situations. After this video, you should have the keys and knowledge necessary to avoid dying in Minecraft. Let's get this thing started. Right off the bat, we need to break down what I'm calling the 3 principles of survival. It's these principles that I'll be using to explain how to avoid Minecraft's biggest uh-oh scenarios. Let's start with the first one. Always be alert. This principle is the key to surviving in the heat of the moment. Say you're running in the Nether, and all of a sudden, there's a massive ravine right in front of you. You didn't see it because of the terrain, so you end up falling in. There are a few actions you can take in this scenario, a few of which I'll go over in a second, but none of the tactics will matter if you aren't ready to deploy them at any given time. Being alert is directly tied to reaction time, so if you're always ready for something bad to happen, you will always have a chance to react to whatever it is. Everything I just said ties perfectly in with my second principle, which is always be prepared. At face value, it sounds a lot like the first principle, but being prepared has more to do with the items in your inventory and specifically your hotbar. Using the ravine situation again, you have a few possible actions. First, you can try to block clutch on the walls of the ravine. To do that, you must have blocks in your bar, so that's something I will always 100% recommend you have. Second, you can try an MLG clutch at the bottom of the ravine. This option takes more skill than the first, but if done correctly, can save yourself from taking any damage at all. Since this example is in the Nether, a water bucket is out of the question. The options I recommend the most in this scenario are a boat, twisted vines, scaffolding, ender pearls, or a hay bale. Ender pearls are the most consistent, since all you have to do is throw in downwards and you'll avoid taking fall damage. A boat clutch requires either fast clicking or good timing. Scaffolding requires you to shift while placing it, and with the vines or hay bale, you can just spam click to place one under you. Hay bales reduce fall damage by 80%, so as long as you fall under 100 blocks, you can survive. Regardless of the MLG method, you have to have your preferred method ready to deploy at any time. That usually means having a hotbar slot and hotkey dedicated to an MLG item, and developing that hotkey as your instinctual reaction to falling. It takes time to develop this, but the main point to take away from this is you need to have the necessary items prepared to survive any scenario. To bring the trio of principles together, my final principle is to never panic. While falling through the ravine, your only options for survival are what I mentioned earlier. But to even be able to deploy any of those tactics, you have to be sharp with your action. Eventually, with enough time, you'll develop muscle memory for clutching in dangerous scenarios. But when just starting out, you need to actually think about what you're doing. If you panic, you can misinput your hotkeys or even forget that you have the things necessary to survive. At the end of the day, all these principles come together to both prevent uh-oh scenarios and protect you while you're in one. These principles can be applied to all scenarios, so making sure you're implementing all of them will allow you to complete the tactics I'm about to go over. With the principles now in stone, we can now move on to tackling real uh-oh scenarios. I think it's best to start with the most common scenarios, since you'll end up encountering at least one of these every time you play. Scenario number 1 is dying from fall damage. Falling is the easiest way to take damage in Minecraft, since any fall more than 3 blocks will cause damage. Falling only a few blocks is not usually what gets you though, it's the drops you're not expecting. Unexpected falls are super sketchy, but there are some tactics you can use to both avoid them and survive them. To prevent falls, it all starts with being attuned to your surroundings and staying alert. That means watching where you're running to ensure you don't yeet off a cliff. Let's say you do accidentally yeet, you have to take action immediately. Your number 1 option should always be to block clutch on a wall, but if that's not possible, you have to turn to MLGs. Having an MLG tactic on your bar is usually necessary for this, and the best tactic is whatever one you have ready in the moment and are comfortable using. Aim for the flattest ground possible, and prepare to time your MLG for when you get close to the ground. All that's left is to pull off the clutch, and you should have survived your first uh-oh scenario. Our second scenario, however, has much more nuance, and it's dealing with hostile mobs. The most common mobs to die to are creepers and skeletons, since creepers are nearly silent, and skeletons are freaking snipers. Creepers are actually quite easy to deal with though, and it comes down to one Minecraft mechanic. Explosions in Minecraft deal tons of damage, but have one distinct flaw. They really only damage your legs. Using this one simple rule, the ultimate counter for creepers or any other explosion for that matter is to place one block on the ground between you and it. Additionally, if you knock back the creeper before it explodes, it both reduces damage and makes it easier for you to place a block between you and it. As for the skeleton, a shield will always be the best way to deal with them. But let's say you don't have one. Now your best option is to strafe. Skeletons shoot arrows at even intervals, so if you learn the rhythm of the shots, you can can dodge whenever it's about to fire. It's more likely to miss you if you're farther away, so doing little hit and runs between shots is the best way to avoid damage. On to the third scenario, we have falling in lava. This is definitely the deadliest of the uh-oh scenarios, and it easily has the least amount of counters. The best way to survive lava is to avoid it altogether or be super careful when around it. But if you do happen to fall in, you have a couple options. The first is to place water, preferably in a place where you don't get trapped under the obsidian. This is the most consistent way to survive, but it has the fatal flaw of not being available in the nether. Most lava deaths happen here, so I'll break down what to do in a lava lake. To survive any time at all in lava, you need pretty good armor, and even then, you need to act fast. When in lava, you have to try and get out of it as soon as possible. That can either happen up or down. If you try to escape up, you should try to place a boat on dry land so you can enter it. Using an ender pearl is also a good option since it gets you out immediately. If you go down, you can try and place doors on the floor of the lava lake. This will create an air pocket that you can stand in and try and heal. Another option is to dig into the floor of the lava lake, sink into the hole, and close it up after you. Chugging golden apples is also a strategy, but they can be hard to get and sometimes take too long to eat. If you have bad armor, I'm sorry, but you're pretty much out of luck. Obviously, none of these tactics are necessary if you have fire resistance, so if you can, I'd recommend using it in the nether. Now onto the fourth most common scenario, we have drowning. This is actually very avoidable, and there's two main ways to do it. The first and easiest tactic is to create an air pocket for yourself. On Java, there are many blocks that create pockets, such as doors, pressure plates, and even beds. So you can make air by placing things, but you can also create air by breaking blocks. I recommend digging down or sideways rather than up out of a water cave, since you mine faster when you're on top of a block. When going into a wall, go to the bottom and dig into the face. Once you break the block, swim in and place a block behind you. When going into the floor, you will either have to dig 1 or 2 blocks down. Once you can place a block above you while you're in swim mode, you can create an air pocket. The second option is to bring your own air. There are 2 blocks in Minecraft that replenish your oxygen: soul sand and magma blocks. Soul sand pushes you up, and magma pulls you down but damages you. I'd recommend choosing a magma block for swimming in water caves, since you can easily place one next to some ores, shift to avoid taking damage, and mine without worrying about your oxygen. Water caves are actually better for finding diamonds quickly, so this trick can be super handy when mining. Other than in water caves, these tricks can be useful when trying to complete an ocean monument. You can also use the doors as shields from guardians, so they serve as a dual-purpose win-win item. Those were the most common scenarios, but there are so many more to cover. I think it's only right we do a lightning round. Welcome back to the uh-oh scenario slideshow. Sit back, relax, and let's put the to these suffocation. Place a torch or soul sand underneath you while you mine upwards. Keep mining with a shovel if you get trapped. You have to just commit. Bees. If you break a hive, bees will get mad at you. Place a campfire under it to avoid this. If you can't fight the urge, just run away for 25 seconds and they'll forget you did anything. Powder snow. Water removes all snow it touches, so place a bucket when you fall in. If you don't have water, dig out the 2 blocks you're standing in and pick a cardinal direction to burrow out in. Wardens. Sprint jump sneaking is the best way to move around a city undetected. But if you do spawn a warden, either get away as fast as possible or sprint jump sneak away. If it gets mad at you, keep running. Wardens can sonic shriek through walls, so be careful with how you try to escape. Tridents. Much like skeletons, trident drowns are absolute snipers, but strafing while swimming is the best way to avoid getting hit. Dragon's breath. The breath defaults to being placed at your feet, so if you just build up 1 block, it can't reach you. Elytra. While they can be useful to get out of some jams, you have to be careful about kinetic energy. When flying in a confined space, it's usually best to just land quickly, but you could choose to spin like a top and ride out the fireworks effects. Withering. When withered, the first task is to avoid getting hit twice. I recommend pillaring up as the best escape. That applies to most mobs, not just wither skeletons. After that, eat as much as possible to try and regen, and maybe even do some head hitters to try and eat even more. Fire. The best option is obviously water, so immediately search for that. If that's off the table, treat it as a withering scenario and eat as much as possible while doing head hitters. That'll give you the best chance to outlive the flames. Levitation. To end off the lightning round, we go to the end and deal with floating upwards. Always bring a water bucket to end cities, because not only can you save yourself from fall damage, but you can place it on walls and ceilings to avoid the floating effects of levitation. Boats can also serve a similar purpose. There are an infinite amount of ways to die in Minecraft, and numerous amounts of really specific uh-oh scenarios that can happen. I'm not going to cover every single one in this video, but with the principles I gave you earlier plus some critical thinking, I'm pretty confident you can survive 99% of scenarios. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments, and if you want to learn about speedrunning tactics you and everyone else should be using, click the video right here. Thanks for watching.